Karoline Leavitt has been all over the airwaves trying to defend what Jonathan Ross did in killing and, in my opinion, murdering Renee Good, and then justifying the reaction afterwards by the Trump administration. And you can see here the way that Karoline Leavitt ends her impromptu press conference out in front of the White House is to slander and smear Renee Good, who is dead, as a lunatic, and then storm off away from the reporters. Look at this, just sickening stuff.
And this administration will continue to stand wholeheartedly by the brave men and women of ICE, including that officer in Minneapolis who was absolutely justified in using self-defense against a lunatic who was part of a group, an organized group, to interject and to impede on law enforcement operations. And it's disgusting what we have seen from the left. And I think that it just shows you where the modern day Democrat Party stands today in protecting illegal alien pedophiles and rapists and murderers over law-abiding American citizens and our brave men and women who serve in law enforcement.
And Aaron Rupar described that as, for the second time today, Leavitt calls Renee Good a lunatic and then storms away from reporters. So this is their stance. Not even a basic level of empathy, of humanity. It's not even they're on a legal basis trying to make sure Jonathan Ross doesn't get prosecuted for murder. It's that they're going way further than that to say Renee Good, who is now dead because of the actions of Jonathan Ross, we need to describe her as a lunatic, a radical left domestic terrorist. And and celebrate what happened. Not feel any level of heartbreak for her family. Not have any introspection about how we're directing ICE. None of it. That's where we are. And then she tries to frame it as, if you are horrified by what happened to Renee Good, then you're siding with criminals and pedophiles over law enforcement. Well, no, it's that we're opposed to murder, whoever it's coming from, or unjust killings, whoever it's coming from, including if it's a law enforcement person. And don't ever leave your mouth that it's the Democrats defending pedophiles. Don't ever let that leave your mouth right now. Because no, we haven't forgotten that, what was it? You released about 1% of the Epstein files and then went, I think that's enough. I think that's it.
Let's stop attacking pedophiles.
That's Ted Cruz accidentally admitting what's going on. So don't ever let that leave your mouth again. But she keeps repeating this, as Aaron Rupar pointed out.
What happened last Wednesday and the officer who was involved in the shooting? Does the president stand fully behind that officer, that agent? Does the president believe his actions were justified?
Absolutely. And I think the more evidence that comes out shows the officer was justified, and President Trump was right about this all along. And who was wrong? The Democrat Party and the mainstream media, who despicably have been lying about this officer and about this case from the very beginning. And they have had to change their story and their narrative. Because at first you heard Democrats, including the mayor of Minneapolis, saying that the car never struck the officer and the lethal force.
So then she's going to go on to repeat and repeat. I honestly can't hear it again. We've gone through these talking points. We watched the video a bunch of times. We looked at different angles, and even the angle they posted to try to substantiate their argument debunked it. And then, to play another moment from this press conference before she left, I'm sure you've heard by now, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in a second, but Trump has now sicked his DOJ in a criminal investigation on Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, which Trump's been beefing with a lot. And so Leavitt tried denying that was Trump's ambition.
Do you think that the Fed chair should be in jail?
Thank you so much, Caroline. Jerome Powell, President Trump has mentioned on multiple occasions that the administration could probably bring a lawsuit against him. Did the president ever direct DOJ officials to open an investigation into Powell?
No.
And can you reassure the American public that his longstanding criticisms and public comments about Powell had nothing to do with the investigation?
Look, the president has every right to criticize the Fed chair. He has a First Amendment right, just like all of you do. And one thing for sure, the president's made it quite clear, is Jerome Powell is bad at his job. As for whether or not Jerome Powell is a criminal, that's an answer the Department of Justice is going to have to.
So they are really trying to convince us that just one thing after another is a total coinkydink. Trump rages against James Comey and then he's indicted. He rages against Letitia James and then they are opening investigation into her. He rages against Jerome Powell and now there's a criminal investigation into him. And that would be a more convincing argument if Trump hadn't posted on accident publicly to Pam Bondi that he wanted a bunch of people prosecuted and then she did it. A quick lighthearted break. Here's Trump experiencing a little bit of turbulence on Air Force One. And after describing Karoline Leavitt as someone with beautiful, what did he say? Look at that face and those lips. They move like a machine gun. Talking about Karoline Leavitt, he then goes, I don't have anything to grab onto. I won't grab onto Leavitt. While we watch this, please do click the subscribe button if you appreciate the show.
When will you meet with Machado this week?
Looking for something to grab here because it's going to get rough. And I don't seem to be in a very, I think you did this to me. You put me in a position where there's absolutely nothing to grab.
Mr. President.
So I'm looking for something to grab, and it's not going to be Karoline.
Sir, have any oil companies made commitments to you, sir? Have any oil companies?
So we're on time like 12 of him saying stuff about Karoline Leavitt that it just accidentally sounds weird. I'm looking for something to grab, but it's not going to be Karoline.
How was that bad, Mom?
As much as I want to. Let me grab onto those lips. Face. I'm talking about face. Then you have Trump saying this about Renee Good.
At a very minimum, that woman was very, very disrespectful to law enforcement. And you heard the same noises. You saw the same crunch that I saw. You can't do that with law enforcement, whether it's police or ICE.
Crunch. There was no crunch. To be clear, Adams says her last 6 words, that's fine, dude. I'm not mad. The individual that murdered her, effing bitch, is what his final words to her were, or after he shot her. Pretty big difference. And being disrespectful to law enforcement doesn't mean they can kill you. I should specify that. Then there was a crazy weekend of interviews on this from Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, etc. Let's check in on Kristi Noem.
The question is, when he's out of harm's way, what is the reason for the second and third shot through the window when he is out? He's not in the line of sight of the car.
This investigation will continue to unfold and more information will come forward. But until that comes, what I would appreciate is everybody sticking to the facts of the situation and recognize that this law enforcement officer took action based on his training to protect himself and the public.
I'm just waiting for the investigation to come through. I'm wondering.
Yeah, they keep doing this to defend themselves, which is, if you have an opinion, as we've talked about, you need to wait until the investigation concludes. We, in the case of Kristi Noem specifically, can call her domestic terrorist before any investigation has been done. But you have to wait. If you see the video and with your own eyes and ears you can tell this was completely unjust, that's a you problem and you need to quit it. And you need to wait until we give you an answer based on our investigation. But we can jump to any conclusion that we like, including domestic terrorist, including lunatic, including it was totally justified, definitely self-defense. And how are we supposed to take anyone seriously who speaks for this administration when they act like she does? Look at all these different, she does like dress up for different ICE outings. Look at this one, like she's about to invade Iraq. What? Why, podcast listeners, I'm showing all the different outfits. What possible reason would we need Kristi Noem to have a gun this size? What, are there any puppies nearby? All right, continue with this interview.
Was impeding law enforcement operations throughout the previous moments and hours before
the question is, what was she doing when she was moving her car?
The question is why are we arguing with a president who's working to keep people safe? Why are we arguing with law enforcement operations that have...
Oh, the real message, Noem says, is why is anyone arguing with the president? That's the real takeaway that she has. Then look at this.
That he's alive, too. I want to play this moment from the officer's cell phone video. This is number 7, folks.
Get out of the car. Oh! Fucking bitch.
Is that Agent Ross's voice calling Renee Good a fucking bitch?
I can't determine which one it is, but it could be, sir.
In June.
So again, her last words to him were, "I'm not mad at you, dude." He says effing bitch after shooting her in the face. And she was the threat to him because she was moving her wheels to the right to drive away from him. Now, this one is a doozy because Jake Tapper goes, if you're not going to be honest about this, maybe instead of just getting your take on it, let's see how your takes compare. So this is him playing footage from January 6th.
Those are law enforcement officers being physically attacked. By this standard, would any of those officers be justified in shooting and killing the people causing them physical harm?
Every single situation.
Listen to this word salad of all word salads, okay? So they're saying because of what we watched on video, Renee Good's action justify her being shot in the face 3 times, even after he's completely out of the way of the car. So, by that standard, would you like to now say that these rioters, Trump supporters, physically attacking, no ambiguity, police officers should have been mowed down? Should have just been mowed down. That's your stance, right? Because it's weird. These are the same people that have been called patriots by your boss. These are the same people that your boss pardoned. So what's the standard here? If moving your car in what could best for the ICE agent be described as an ambiguous way, from my standpoint, was pretty obvious what she was trying to do and wasn't run him over. If that could get you shot in the face 3 times, what should have been done to all these rioters who were physically attacking police officers? Because the one Trump supporter who was killed by an officer in self-defense, actually, y'all said was a martyr, and that was completely unjustified. I'm really confused by this standard.
Every single situation is going to rely on the situation those officers are on. But they know that when people are putting hands on them, when they are using weapons against them, when they are physically harming them, that they have the authority to arrest those individuals.
The president pardoned every single one of those people.
And make sure that they're getting justice for their actions going forward.
President Trump pardoned every single one of them.
What did any of those words mean? We don't know. She just said a bunch of mumble. Well, depending on the situation and the situation that they're in, it makes the officer be a situation that they can do within the context of a situation to arrest or to do the justice for the individuals in relation to law enforcement.
And every single one of these investigations comes in the full context of the situation on the ground. And that's one thing that President Trump has been so focused on, is making sure that when we're out there, we don't pick and choose which situations are and which laws are enforced and which ones aren't. Every single one of them is being enforced under the Trump administration, and the clarity of the law stands. And if people don't like it, these members of Congress and elected officials should go change the law and make sure they have that debate and policy change.
I just showed you video of people attacking law enforcement officers. Undisputed proof, undisputed evidence. And I just said President Trump pardoned all of them. And you said that President Trump is enforcing all the laws equally. It's just not true. There's a different standard for law enforcement officials being attacked if they're being attacked by Trump supporters. We just saw that.
This individual and these instances and these investigations all have to be taken and done correctly in context of every situation that is happening on the ground.
Oh, I see. Oh, so if it's in the context of an individual that they did a thing within the context of a situation, then the situation is different depending on the... they're not even good at how bad they are. Does that make sense? They're not even good at being just so terrible. What is that? How have they still not thought of an excuse? Maybe because there is none for the January 6th pardons. You can't say moving your car trying to get away as ICE agents scream at you when you were just there in the road protesting and were zero threat to them and were saying, hey, I'm not mad at you, dude. The justified response can be shooting you in the face. But if you're actually beating police officers, tasing them, hitting them with flagpoles, trying to crush them in between doors, then that is just a situation that has to be taken on its own situational context. And if someone gets killed in that process, as one person did, or multiple, likely through the series of events, but one Trump supporter being killed, then that person was, then the officer in that situation was completely in the wrong. Now, obviously, I appreciate Jake Tapper doing that, but they don't really care. I don't think Noam cares. I know she said she knows she can just say a bunch of mumbo jumbo, because any of the people who already support Trump and believe in that ideology that those pardons were justified will just kind of go, yeah, there is a different standard. That is what they believe. There is a different standard. And a lot of them have been convinced that despite us just watching the video, it was actually just a bunch of peaceful protesters walking through a self-guided tour of the Capitol. And so it's like, I don't know who that's for, but I hope that demonstrates how dishonest Noam is being. If you think she's serious in saying, no, Jonathan Ross did nothing wrong, well, then just assume she's as accurate there and as accurate as she was being in the clip I just played for you, which is not. Then, because Kristi Noem was speaking a lot of mumbo jumbo, maybe we shift over to Tom Homan, who is normally very articulate and easy to understand.
His Gurus method, I've noticed in the media.
Yeah. Honestly, that was more intelligible than what Noem said. Let's see this.
I want to stay on this question.
Did I already say click the subscribe button? Okay, sorry.
Which is about the way in which the woman who was shot and killed is being labeled as a domestic terrorist. Just to be clear, is anyone who protests ICE a domestic terrorist in the eyes of the administration?
I can't say that. It's a case-by-case basis. But, if you look up the definition of terrorism, is there violence? Is there threat of violence based on an ideology that wants to change the way the government does what we do? Look up the definition of terrorism.
But was Secretary Noem correct to label her a domestic terrorist, Mr. Homan?
Look, we don't know I don't know if Secretary Noem knows and what I know. I can tell you is what they did is illegal. And if you look up this definition of terrorism, it certainly could fall within that definition if you look at the definition of terrorism.
But you don't have evidence.
Pardon me?
You don't have evidence that she's a domestic terrorist.
I don't know what Secretary has that I don't.
Okay, she has nothing that you don't. And let's go back to Tapper. Every single Trump administration official should be confronted with that video. It's not justified to shoot at them by their standard. To be clear, so you know the them that I'm referring to protesters or rioters. It's not justified, and the officer shouldn't feel threatened when someone's crushing their head in with an object for minute upon minute upon minute. That is not enough of a threat. But someone moving their car because you from the side walked in front of it as you're not supposed to do based on ICE training, and then you're out of the way for this completely for the second two shots, that is a justified example of you being threatened. And it is justified to call Renee Good a terrorist for absolutely no reason. But it's not justified to call people terrorists despite them perfectly fitting into what he just said the definition of terrorism was, which is using violence, I guess he said, because of a political ideology to change the actions of a government, like, prevent a certification of an election. It's just sickening. And this is why I don't know if I promise. On the bonus show, at least, we'll try to just only do fun things, because this is just so heavy and infuriating to watch people who are so willing to be as dishonest as they possibly want to be. Right? Like, that's dishonest, what I just said there. He's just willing to be as dishonest as he wants, however much we can or can't. And then at one point he says there's going to be more bloodshed if people don't tone down the, what was it? The inflammatory rhetoric. Or as I think he was trying to say, rhetoric.
There are already 2,000 or so federal agents in Minneapolis for this massive crackdown that's tied in part to this ongoing probe of alleged Somali fraud. Fox is told that about 1,000.
Yeah, what does that mean? We're sending a bunch of ICE agents to get to the bottom of the Somali fraud? So they're going door to door? Like, what does that even mean? Did you do fraud? Well, you look like you did. Did you? What about him? What does that mean?
1,000 more Border Patrol agents are going to be heading there to assist, basically free up HSI officers. There's also this growing network of local residents who are tracking ICE movements and warning people about them. And schools in the area are being given the option of remote learning for the next month because of how hot the environment is getting. Yeah. Are you concerned about what we're heading toward? And what do you say to those officials like Mayor Frey, who's accused the administration of just looking for an excuse to invoke the Insurrection Act?
That's ridiculous. Bottom line, they don't have to shut schools down.
I don't know. What? What?
That's ridiculous. Bottom line, they don't have to shut schools down. They can't give me one example where ICE has walked into an elementary school or church or hospital. It's ridiculous. And all this false narrative that they're pushing, it's just going to double down on hate against ICE. For instance, calling it a murder, the mayor calling it a murder. The hateful rhetoric has caused a lot of this violence. I said way back in March, if the hateful rhetoric doesn't decrease, there will be bloodshed. Unfortunately, I was right, and it's not over. There will be more bloodshed unless we decrease the hateful rhetoric. To compare this officer to a murder, are you kidding?
Unless we decrease the hateful rhetoric compared to Officer Hayes?
Unless we decrease the hateful rhetoric. To compare this officer to a murder.
Yeah, I don't know. I also want to decrease the hateful rhetoric. Excuse me, I mispronounced that. Rhetoric, but it's I think a part of the hateful rhetoric that you're identifying is people just expressing rhetorically what they feel about horrible events and not thinking the purpose of ICE is to go door to door harassing whoever they want so that maybe they can have another tally mark, and instead it should actually be through lawful processes thoughtfully removing people who have many reasons that we wouldn't want them to be here, as opposed to just random members of communities who there should be a legal path for. I think that's a lot of what he's talking about as hateful rhetoric. But to then go, there's going to be more bloodshed. No, actually, sorry. A part of the reason we're concerned that you've decreased the number of days, which is also something that's true, that ICE agents are being trained before being sent out in the field, is because they are supposed to have the training to deal with people shouting at them. They're supposed to have the training to de-escalate situations. And just because you don't like the rhetoric people are using doesn't mean that they just start getting super trigger happy. And you even have Trump officials reportedly worried about these quick claims of domestic terrorism. One person being quoted saying, I don't know how we recover from this. Because so many just non-political, good-hearted people see what's taking place here and the confidence of Kristi Noem to come out and call Renee Good a domestic terrorist and are saying, I don't know much of where I stand on things, but I know this isn't right. Now, on a different topic, during this interview, Homan was pressed on what he really tries to move on from, which is the $50,000 sack of money. He does not want to talk about his sack.
Let me ask you, because we're almost out of time, I do want to give you the opportunity to respond to some lingering questions about you. As you know, in an undercover operation in 2024, the FBI recorded you accepting a bag which was determined to contain $50,000 from agents posing as business executives who said you indicated you could help win government contracts in the second Trump administration. I want to stress there was an investigation. It was closed last year. The Justice Department said it found, quote, no credible evidence of any criminal wrongdoing.
The Trump DOJ, let's just specify that, Kristen Walker. Don't make it sound like Biden's DOJ, that was actually very independent, looked into this thoroughly and determined there was nothing there. They looked into it and thought that they should do a sting operation. Is that the positive version, or does sting sound like a setup? Not a setup, maybe a setup, but he done set up. He needed to be set up. And then they went in there to prove what he was doing with other people, which was getting bribes. And then he did. And that definitely happened for certain. Tom Homan, sue me, please, if you want to dispute that. I know for certain if we could just subpoena that dang audio tape, we would hear it all taking place and you saying, and then being like, yes, we would like to give you the money for this to get contracts. And he said, and they said, yes, $50,000. He said, they said, well, we're going to deliver it to you in a $50,000 in a bag, in a sack of money, and it could never be traced. And he said, and they said, what? So I know that the tape exists. It definitely is something he did, and he should be being criminally prosecuted.
I do want to give you an opportunity to respond, though, Mr. Homan. Where is that $50,000? Did you keep it or did you return it?
I didn't take $50,000 from anybody, and that's a question for the FBI. I'm not going to give the story any more air. Bottom line, I did nothing illegal. I did nothing, and the FBI and DOJ reviewed this. No credible evidence I did anything, because I didn't do anything illegal.
But was there $50,000 in the bag, and did you return it?
I'm not giving the story any more air. This is an attack on my integrity and my professionalism. I'm not addressing it. But that's a question of the FBI.
Can you address, given that it's been recorded, did you keep the money? Did you return the money?
I did not keep any. $50,000 is ridiculous. The FBI has been clearing this.
That peaked out a little bit. He's like, $50,000? I was accepting $2 million. Kristen, what do you think I said? $50,000? I was getting bribed to the tune of mils.
And it irritates me. This story keeps going on and on and on, even though I've been found to do nothing inappropriate. So I'm not going to ask any more of these questions.
But just a bit, did you return the money?
I didn't have any money to return.
Okay.
I didn't take the
$50,000.
Bottom line.
Let me ask you, you're saying you did nothing unlawful. Would you be comfortable with the FBI releasing the recordings?
That's a decision of the FBI.
But it might be a decision for the FBI, but would you be comfortable if they released
Again, I'm not getting ahead of the FBI in this.
I love that. Would you be comfortable with them releasing the tapes? And he goes, that's a decision for the FBI. Wait. What's the tape of then? What's the audio recording of, if not you accepting the bribe? He would be good, though, in a criminal trial, because, the thing that's really tough with prosecutors is they'll put you on the stand, right? And if I were representing him, I would want him to take the stand, and then they can take one thing you said earlier and can connect and make you contradict, right? And that, where this is going, jaded, and then they can kind of like trip you up on this and that thing. But the great thing with him is you can put him on the stand and be like, did you take the money? And he'd be like, and then later they'd be like, he said he did take the money. He'd be like, check again. I don't think you know what the F he said. He took the money 100%. That's just what happened. That is just what happened.